Well, hey friends, before we jump into today's episode, let me ask you a question. Oh man, are you tired of feeling like you're doing youth ministry alone? Because the reality is you don't have to. And community around you is so important. You need people who can be a listening ear. You need people who can be an encouragement. You need people who just honestly understand what it's like to do what we do. And you don't have to be alone. Listen, the Longer Haul Collective is an online community built just for youth pastors and youth ministers. This is a place where you can get practical help, you can share ideas, you can ask questions, and you can be encouraged by people who actually get what you do every week. So whether you've been in youth ministry for 20 years or 20 minutes, the collective is full of things. You're going to find resources, discussions, courses, and coaching that's designed to help you stay healthy and stay in this thing for the longer haul. So head over to thelongerhaul.com/school, SKOOL. That's thelongerhaul.com/school, and try out the community for free today. Listen, you don't have to do this alone. So come be a part of the collective. Oftentimes busyness is just a sign of unhealth. Like you're going to have seasons where you're really busy, but I'm never happy about those. Busyness doesn't mean more fruit. Busyness doesn't mean more effective. Busyness means maybe that you don't know how to manage your time well. Busyness maybe means you haven't been clear on what you're trying to accomplish and what you're running at. And so don't just try to be busy, try to be faithful, try to build something faithful and sustainable.
Welcome to the Longer Haul Youth Ministry Podcast, helping you survive and thrive in youth ministry. And now, here's your host, Jody Livingston.
Well, hey there, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Longer Haul Youth Ministry Podcast. I am excited for you to be here. I say that every week, every episode, and it's true. That's why I say it. So excited to jump in today. A solo episode today, tackling something that I think is very relevant right now if you're listening to this in real time, as we are in the throes of youth ministry here in the fall. And so summer is a different kind of crazy. We come out of the summer and then we dip into and head into the fall. No rest for the weary, as they say. And so today I want to tackle the idea of creating a fall ministry rhythm that doesn't burn you out, because the fall can destroy you if you're not aware or not being mindful of that. Before we jump into that, hey, listen, if you're not subscribed and following the show, make sure you do that. If you've not taken time to leave a review wherever you listen, please do that for me, especially if you find anything helpful here, helps other youth pastors, youth ministers find the podcast, and honestly helps me know that you're enjoying it and then it's helpful. So if you could take a moment to do both of those things, I would greatly appreciate it. So let's talk about then what it looks like to have a fall ministry rhythm that doesn't burn you out. I think sometimes if you're not careful, you'll just stack things on top of things on top of things, and then you'll end up looking around at some point and being just burnt to a crisp. And so the reality is this, though. You don't have to choose between like being faithful or being fried, okay? You can be both. You can build a fall rhythm that works for you, that works for your team, your volunteers, your students, and you can do that all without sacrificing your health or your ministry effectiveness, but it has to be done on purpose. And so if you were to stop right now and look at your ministry calendar and then look at your personal calendar, like, how's that looking right now? Is it just crammed full of stuff? Or is there some rhythm there that provides some healthy space? I get it. Like, you want to be intentional and you want to be available. Of course you do. But if you're already tired just looking at your fall schedule, that's a problem, right? And I can tell you after 25, 26 years of this, that when you come out of the summer and hit the ground running in the fall, all of a sudden now school's back in, there's ball games, it's like the real rhythm. And sometimes, if we're honest, at least for me, summer is such a crazy pace on a different level, but it's a lot of outliers. It's camps, it's summer events. Sometimes it's mission trips, if that's your rhythm. And then you come into the fall and you're like, oh, okay, finally we're back to normal. And so you just build out this calendar that looks so great on paper, but man, in the end, it just wrecks you because it's too much. And so I just want to give us a few reminders here as we kind of jump into this idea and this thought. And the first one is this: that busyness doesn't equal fruitfulness. Just because you're busy doesn't mean anything's coming from that. And so what does it look like then to pursue fruitfulness and not necessarily just fill your calendar, convincing yourself that that's going to produce the fruit that you want? More doesn't always equal better. And the temptation here is to fill every night or every event slot with something that's happening, and your volunteers, your family, and they're all burning out. It's not always visible when that's happening until it's kind of too late. You look around and you realize, oh my gosh, we are gassed. Like, what have we been doing? And the fall often gets loaded up, right? Because we're trying to start strong. But then, man, November comes and we're crashing because we've been running at just an unsustainable pace. And so this idea of creating a healthy rhythm in the fall is really, really important if you want to have a strong spring, right? If you want to have a strong summer, if you want to have a strong ministry, if you want to survive and do this. And so I think you need to stop and ask yourself this question. When you think about purpose, not necessarily the pressure to do it all, but purpose. And you would say, okay, what are we actually trying to do this fall? Like, what are you actually trying to accomplish? This is your big why. If you've read my book, Staying Power, you'll know, man, I'm big on your why. So why are you doing all these things? What is it that you're trying to accomplish? And then let's be intentional to recenter your ministry on those core priorities. Are they discipleship? Are you trying to build community? Is it evangelism? Whatever those priorities for you are, those core priorities, let's try to center then your calendar and the events and the things that you're doing on those. So let me just give you a few practical tips, I think, that are helpful when we're thinking about building then a sustainable rhythm of ministry. And so the first is this: just to think about your fall or your calendar in general as rhythms and not just random events, right? You may have certain things you do every year. This becomes kind of a rhythm for you. You might do a fall retreat every year, and that's your yearly rhythm. You might do a Disciple Now weekend every fall. If that's your rhythm in the fall, that's your rhythm. And so what does that look like? If you're doing a small group ministry, maybe you take the summers off for small groups, but then you jump back in the fall. And so you're relaunching those. What does that look like? Maybe you're launching new teaching series and you do that every fall. So backing away and thinking about, okay, these aren't just events or things that we're doing. These are rhythms. Some of them are going to take place on a yearly basis. They're a yearly rhythm that happen to happen in the fall. But then you're going to have some things that you're going to do beginning in the fall that are more weekly, some that are more monthly, some that are more quarterly. And so maybe for weekly rhythms, you're going to say, okay, we're going to have one main night, our midweek night. And then maybe we're going to do one leadership thing with student leaders, or we're going to do kind of more, you personally are even going to have a bit of a planning rhythm where you're going to set out, evaluate what you're doing in the past and look ahead. But that's kind of your weekly rhythm. And then maybe monthly, you're going to say, okay, our monthly rhythm is that we're going to do one big fun or one on-ramp event or one outreach opportunity. And maybe it's a fun thing or an outreach thing, right? Try not to do both all the time. You'll die. And so maybe that's your monthly rhythm. Is okay, weekly, we're going to pour into midweek. We're going to pour into small groups. We're going to pour, if you're in a Sunday school hour, like we're going to do weekly. I'm going to set aside some time for planning, for evaluation. And then on a monthly basis, okay, we're going to do one thing a month that's fun, or we're going to do one thing a month that's an outreach thing. And maybe monthly is too much for you. I'm not even saying you have to or you should be doing this once a month. Maybe your monthly thing is a theme night around your midweek, and that becomes a big invite opportunity or a big on-ramp opportunity for you because you're kind of going crazy on this. The fall presents itself well for this because there's a lot of things that fall in the fall calendar that would be around holidays. You've got Thanksgiving, you've got Christmas, you've got, the Halloween season. And so you're doing a harvest festival or a fall bash or whatever those look like in your context. You've got some of those beginning October, November, December. And so then what does it look like to jump in to August, September, depending on when your school year starts and when kind of your fall programming starts? They don't have to be off-campus events. You can be more intentional. And in doing so, then you're kind of doubling up then on your midweek rhythms. But what does it look like to have a weekly rhythm? What does it look like to have a monthly rhythm? What about quarterly? Are you doing a retreat, right? Is this a fall retreat? Are you doing Disciple Now? Is this a parent connection thing? Do you have a service opportunity? Those things maybe are more quarterly. So you're not looking at doing them monthly, but you're going to do them kind of once a semester, once a quarter in that. And so what does that rhythm look like? And then maybe most importantly for your own sanity and your own sake is, what does it look like for you to program, and I say program, but plan some Sabbath rest in there for you to plan and recover? What does it look like for you to be intentional then with your rest? And if you're not putting that on your calendar, and you're like me, it just may not happen. You'll just keep running to the next thing, and you'll look around and realize you haven't really taken some time to rest and recharge. And so being mindful of that. So think in rhythms, not random events. That's kind of the first thing I'd give there for you. The second is this: protect, a night off per week, at least one, maybe more. If you can do that, you need to have some margin in your life. You need to be intentional about it, and don't apologize for it. Right now, obviously, sometimes there are things that are out of our control, and there might be certain seasons where it's harder than another to do this, but you really need to make sure, if you've got a family especially, you should not be out every night of the week. That's not healthy for you. That's not healthy for your family. That's not good. And so you need to be able to kind of protect, put in some margin in your week and protect that. Don't apologize for it. And then actually do it. Like, honor that margin for you. By doing this, you're going to teach your team to value rest because you're modeling it, right? You're teaching your volunteers, teaching your students, you're teaching those around you, you're teaching your family, you're teaching your kids. If you have kids, you're modeling this. And so what does it look like to have some margin there? Protect that. Don't apologize for it, but then honor it. Actually do it, right? And so that's number 2. Number 3, communicate early, often, and clearly. So when we talk about this rhythm of events or activities or your own rhythm for your own sanity and Sabbath rest, share this rhythm early and clearly and often with your volunteers, with your parents, with other staff, with the students. Make sure you're sharing this consistently. What does this look like? That would be sharing when the events are happening. And when if you're doing an event, then you also need to schedule the planning of the event. If you're doing a fall retreat on a weekend, don't expect that week of that you're going to be scrambling and trying to do stuff. No, plan that in, build that time in so that you're not scrambling, so that you're not then compromising your margin because you procrastinated and didn't plan very well, right? And so being able to communicate these things with your volunteers, with your parents, with your students, with other staff, with your family, especially if you're married, with your spouse, these are really, really helpful. What this does for you then is it builds buy-in. You're casting vision on rhythms. You're casting vision on your schedule. You're casting vision on why, your purpose, what it is that you're doing and why you're doing those things. And then all of a sudden now you're able to avoid some surprises. You're not having the frustration at home with family and spouse because you're running off to this thing that you didn't communicate, because you've been communicating early and you've been communicating often and you've communicated it clearly. You're not going to avoid surprises with volunteers or with parents or students. I mean, you're not going to have surprises. You're going to avoid those. And look, I get it. Yes, emergencies come. Yes, you may have hospital visits that you're going to have to do. Yes, there may be a crisis that a family has that you're going to have to step into. But those should be the outlier, the exception, not the consistent rhythm of what you're doing and of your ministry. So whatever those are, communicate those early, communicate those often, and communicate those clearly. Next is this: delegate or delete. Delegate or delete. What I find is in ministry, we are really good at adding things to our calendar. Like, we're really, really good at adding things to our calendar. What we're not great at is removing things from our calendar. We never seem to replace things. We never seem to do away with things. We just add new things on top of what we've already done. And that leads to just chaos. So the idea is this: you delegate it or you delete it. If you can't sustain it, you either need to share it or you need to cut it out. And so you may have things that you're tackling, you're doing, that you need to delegate away to other volunteers. You need to do that. You can't do it all. And so the exercise that I always take youth pastors and youth ministers through is this: sit down and make a list of all of the things that you do. Nothing is too small for that list. Then go through the list, circle the things that only you can do that are on that list. Only you can do. Then go back through that list, find no more than 2 things that others can do but you enjoy. And then everything else that's not circled is an opportunity to delegate or delete. And you might look at your bigger rhythms, your bigger events. And when you start thinking through purpose and your why and your rhythm, you might realize this isn't really accomplishing anything. It's just something that we do. And that's not a delegation issue. All of a sudden now that's a delete issue. And so you need to come in and you need to figure out what that looks like to remove that thing. And there are some things I totally get that your church and your ministry has done since Jesus walked the earth. You inherited it. You are expected to continue and carry it away. And it might be harder to delete that thing. And so by all means, don't just go kill the sacred cow. You need to lead some change through that, again, through vision and a lot of conversation and patiently and kindly. But if it's not sustainable, it's not accomplishing anything, then you really need to step back and evaluate what that looks like. So when you start looking at the things that you're doing on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, are there things there that you're doing that you need to delegate or you can delegate? And this is not you skirting responsibility. You're not giving away things that you just don't want to do. Nothing should be beneath you. You're delegating things that others can do because there are things that only you can do. And if you're busy doing all of the things, those things that are essential, those essential tasks that only you can do, well, those things now aren't being done very well. And so you need to be able to focus on those things where you can, as you can, however you can. And that's going to mean that you're going to have to delegate some things away. And in some cases, you're going to delete it. So again, if you can't sustain it, you either share it by delegating it or you cut it and you get it out. And so what does this do for you then? If you can do these things, again, I already mentioned this, but it gives you volunteer and student buy-in. It gives you personal buy-in with your family. It gives leadership buy-in when you can communicate your why and how you're doing this. Hopefully you're leading this through some vision. Your rhythm is going to set the culture, right? It's going to set the culture across the board. Hopefully what you're doing is you're building something that is healthy, that is simple, that is repeatable. And listen, healthy, simple, and repeatable is always better than complex and chaotic. No one trusts chaos. And for your parents, for your families, for your own family, all of those things, you need something that is healthy, something that is simple, something that is repeatable, something that is clearly important and everyone understands why you're doing what you're doing and that you can explain. And so you're not, maybe you're going to say, look, we're not doing less because we cared less. We're doing less so we can go deeper on the things that matter more. And that's the key, right? Is you're not just cutting things because you don't care or because you're lazy. Don't do less because you care less. Do less so you can go deeper on the things that matter really, really more. And if you can do that, if you can set that up, and you all of a sudden now have something that's sustainable and you know what to expect. Your family knows what to expect. You've built in some spaces for rhythm and rest and margin, but you're also really clear on what you're doing and why you're doing it. And you're able to be more creative. You're able to be more effective. You're able to be more intentional on the things that really, really matter. And if you've delegated well, don't just pass it off. You've also encouraged, empowered, trained volunteers and others to do that. And by doing so, you're equipping your fellow saints, your fellow volunteers to do the work of ministry, which is what we've been called to do, right? And so you have permission to build something that is both faithful and sustainable, not just busy. Don't just be busy. Sometimes we talk about how busy we are. We brag about it like it's something incredible. It's something great. And oftentimes busyness is just a sign of unhealth. You're going to have seasons where you're really busy, but I'm never happy about those. Busyness doesn't mean more fruit. Busyness doesn't mean more effective. Busyness means maybe that you don't know how to manage your time well. Busyness maybe means you haven't been clear on what you're trying to accomplish and what you're running at. And so don't just try to be busy, try to be faithful, try to build something faithful and sustainable. And listen, don't wait to do this until you're exhausted. And all of a sudden now you're having to make changes or change the rhythm. Do it now. Start small. You don't have to go big on this. Start small. Follow up, review that regularly, be clear, ask for feedback. If you're married, ask your spouse, ask your volunteers, ask your pastor, your supervisor, and then you just adjust as you go while you are reviewing these things. And then you start small and you make more and you make more and more. You work towards something that is highly sustainable and much more effective. And if you can do this, all of a sudden now, hopefully, you can start being really excited about the things that are coming and not just looking at the next thing. It's like, oh man, now we have to do this. Oh man, now this is what's next. Now, it should never be that. It should never be that. It should be, here's what's coming. Here's why we're doing it. Here's why it matters. And here's how we're going to do it. And here are the things that aren't really that important. And so we're not going to do these, or we're at least not going to put as much effort into these so that we can run and do these other things that matter more and do those better. And so again, rhythms are going to be really, really important. If you've not read that, there's a whole chapter in Staying Power devoted to healthy rhythms. And even in some of that is making changes. We talk about leading through vision. There's another chapter on that. Those two will be super helpful for you as you think through what it looks like to make some changes, to maybe cut some things out, but even to what it looks like to walk in a healthy rhythm for you. And how do you navigate that with some wisdom? So hopefully this is helpful. Just some simple tips, some simple things for you to think through. If you are struggling with doing too much, hear me say you have permission to do less and do less better. And so make sure you are pursuing things with intention. And if you can do that, I promise everyone around you will be better for it. So that's it for today. Kind of a shorter solo deal. Appreciate you. Thanks for jumping in. I know the fall can be crazy. Hang in there. Be smart with what you're doing. Be wise in how you lead. And hopefully you're not in survive and advance mode. If you start feeling yourself burned out, take a check on that. Find somebody to talk to. There's a lot of places to do that for sure. Hopefully you have some relationships with people around you that you can do that. I mentioned the Longer Haul Collective at the beginning of this episode. It's a great place to find some community and some folks, some rhythm, get some advice, some practical things, hear what others are doing. So if you've not yet jumped into that, you can do that. That's thelongerhaul.com/school, SKOOL. And you can try that for free today to grab some of that community. But you don't have to have an online community to have community. It's a helpful resource. It's a great tool. I think there's tons of things there that can help you. But at the end of the day, you just need some people around you who can hold you accountable and some folks that you can share with. And there's lots of ways to find that. All right, my friends. So listen, let's run towards the fall with a healthy rhythm and not just busy. Let's not confuse busyness with fruitfulness, but let's be faithful and trust that if we're faithful, the fruit will come. Thanks for today for tuning in, making this episode a part of your day. Head over to longerhaul.com, jump on the mailing list there, and for resources and others that will be helpful for you. Again, if you haven't jumped in or checked out the collective, I'd love to have you come and try that out. That's thelongerhaul.com/SKOOL. Otherwise, that'll do it for this episode. I will catch you in the next one.
Thanks for listening to the Longer Haul Youth Ministry Podcast. Before you go, hit that subscribe button to keep these conversations coming. For notes, resources, and to join our community, swing by thelongerhaul.com. Stay encouraged, keep making a difference, and remember, we're in this for the longer haul. Catch you on the next episode.